These stories were shared by real people online, and what they experienced while camping was never fully explained. I've been camping my whole life. My dad took me on my first trip when I was 7, and by the time I was an adult, sleeping in the woods felt more natural to me than sleeping in a bed. I knew the sounds, smells, the way the darkness played tricks on your eyes. I thought I understood what fear in the wilderness felt like. I was wrong. This happened in late October, a few years ago. I decided to take a solo camping trip to a remote forest area about 5 hours from where I lived. It wasn't an official campground, just a stretch of public land that allowed dispersed camping. No facilities, no marked sites, no other people if you chose the right spot. That was the appeal. When I arrived just before sunset, the forest was already quiet in that eerie end-of-season way. Most leaves had fallen, and the trees stood tall and skeletal. The air smelled damp and cold, and the sky was turning that dull gray purple that comes before night fully sets in. I parked my car a good mile from where I planned to camp and hiked in with my pack. I chose a small clearing near a creek. Nothing special, just flat ground and enough space for my tent. No trash, no footprints, no signs that anyone had been there recently. That's important. I set up camp quickly as the light faded. By the time I finished, it was fully dark. The forest felt unusually still. No insects, no distant owls. Even the creek seemed quieter than it should have been, like the water was trying not to make noise. I remember thinking how peaceful it was. I cooked a simple meal, ate by headlamp, and sat by a small fire for a while. Around 10 p.m., I decided to turn in. The temperature had dropped sharply, and I was tired from the hike. The first strange thing happened about an hour later. I woke up suddenly, heart racing, with that unmistakable feeling that someone was nearby. Not watching from far away, but close, very close. I lay still in my sleeping bag, listening. At first, I heard nothing. Then, slowly, I became aware of a soft sound outside my tent. Footsteps. They weren't heavy, they weren't rushed, just slow, deliberate steps circling my campsite. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. I checked my watch. 11:47 p.m. I told myself it was an animal, a deer maybe, but the steps were wrong, too evenly spaced, too controlled. Then I heard breathing. It wasn't loud, just faint enough that I thought I might be imagining it. The sound came from right outside my tent wall, near where my head was resting. I froze. Whoever or whatever it was stopped moving. The footsteps ceased, but the breathing didn't. It lingered for several long seconds, then faded away. Eventually, I convinced myself it had been an animal and forced myself back to sleep. That was my second mistake. I woke again sometime after 2 a.m. This time, there were no footsteps, no breathing. There was whispering. At first, I couldn't make out words. It sounded like someone muttering under their breath just beyond the edge of the fire pit. The voice was low and uneven, like they were talking to themselves. I slowly reached for my headlamp and turned it on. The whispering stopped instantly. I sat up and shined the light around the clearing. Nothing. Just trees, shadows, and my extinguished fire pit. The beam caught something on the ground near the edge of camp. Footprints. Fresh footprints. They weren't there before, I knew that for a fact. They circled my campsite in a loose ring, some closer to the tent than others. The prints were deep, as if whoever made them had been standing still for long periods. Barefoot. I stared at them, my mouth dry. The ground was cold and damp. No one would be walking barefoot out there in October. I didn't sleep after that. When morning finally came, I packed up as fast as I could. That's when I noticed something else. My backpack. where I kept my food, had been opened. Nothing was taken. Instead, someone had rearranged the contents, carefully, methodically. My utensils were lined up, my food packets stacked neatly, even my trash was folded. It felt less like theft and more like inspection. I left immediately. Or at least I tried to. About half a mile into the hike back to my car, I heard footsteps behind me again. Same slow pace, same spacing. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I turned around. No one was there. But when I turned back forward, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Ahead of me on the trail, written in the dirt with a stick or finger, was a single word: stay. I didn't hesitate after that. I ran. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, and I didn't look back even once. I drove straight home without stopping, my hands shaking the entire way. I didn't tell anyone about it for a long time, not because I thought they wouldn't believe me, but because I didn't want to think about it. A few months later, curiosity got the better of me. I went online and searched the area where I'd camped. That's when I found a forum post from someone else. Different year, same forest. They described camping alone, hearing footsteps, whispering, bare footprints around their tent, and one final detail that made my blood run cold. They woke up to find a message carved into the dirt outside their tent. You were not invited. I've never gone back. I still camp, but never alone and never off-grid. And sometimes, late at night when everything is quiet, I swear I can still hear those footsteps. Slow, deliberate, circling. It was supposed to be a normal weekend trip. Nothing extreme, nothing remote enough to feel dangerous. That's probably why we didn't see it coming. There were 3 of us: me, my cousin Aaron, and his friend Luke. We drove out to a well-known camping area near a national forest, the kind with marked sites but no staff on duty after dark. Late fall again, cold nights, almost no one else around. When we pulled in just before sunset, the campground was nearly empty. A few abandoned fire pits, empty parking spots, and silence that felt heavier than it should have. We chose a site near the tree line, set back far enough that we couldn't see the road. Luke joked that it felt like the opening of a horror movie. None of us laughed. We set up the tent, started a fire, and cracked open a few beers as the sky darkened. At first, everything felt normal. The fire crackled, the trees swayed gently. Somewhere far off, an animal moved for the brush. Then, around 9 p.m., the sounds changed. The forest went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. Like something had pressed mute on the entire place. Aaron noticed it first. He lowered his voice and asked if we heard that. "What?" Luke said. "Exactly," Aaron replied. "No insects, no wind, no distant wildlife. Just the fire and our breathing." That's when we heard it. A voice. It came from somewhere deep in the trees, just beyond where the firelight reached. "Hey!" We all froze. It was clear. Human, maybe. Hard to tell. Luke stood up immediately and shouted back, "Yeah?" There was a pause. Then the voice replied, slightly closer this time. "Can I sit with you?" I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Something about the way it was said didn't feel right. Too flat, too rehearsed. Aaron whispered, "Do you see anyone?" We scanned the trees. Nothing. Luke laughed nervously and shouted, "Campground's full, man." Another pause. Then, from a different direction, the voice spoke again. "Okay." That should have been it. But a few minutes later, The fire popped loudly, sending sparks into the air, and from the darkness, we heard footsteps, slow, heavy, coming closer. Then they stopped, right at the edge of the light. Still no one visible. "Dude, show yourself," Luke said, trying to sound confident. Silence. Then the voice spoke again, but this time it wasn't the same. It sounded like Aaron. "Dude, show yourself." Aaron's face drained of color. "I didn't say that," he whispered. The voice repeated it again. Same tone, same pacing. Then it did Luke's voice, then mine. One by one, it mimicked each of us word for word, like it was testing how we sounded. That's when I need to ask you something. If you were sitting there with us, hearing your own voice come from the woods, would you run or would you freeze? Because that moment decided everything for us. Luke grabbed the flashlight and shined it wildly into the trees. The beam bounced off trunks and branches but never landed on a person. The footsteps returned, this time circling us. Crunch, step, crunch. Always just outside the firelight. Aaron stood up and shouted, "Get back!" The voice answered immediately, "Get back!" Same volume, same fear. That's when the fire started acting strange. The flames leaned, not with the wind, but toward the trees, like they were being pulled. Luke swore under his breath. Then we heard laughing. Not loud, not joyful, just a quiet, breathy laugh that seemed to come from everywhere at once. We decided to leave immediately. No packing, no discussion. Luke stomped out the fire while Aaron grabbed the keys. I started pulling stakes out of the tent. That's when something stepped into the firelight. It didn't come fully into view, just one leg, pale, bare, bent the wrong way at the knee. Then it stepped back, and the voice spoke again, softer now. "You said I could sit." We didn't respond. We ran. We left the tent, the cooler, everything. We sprinted towards the car, branches whipping our faces, breath burning our lungs. Behind us, we heard running too, but it didn't sound like feet. It sounded like something dragging itself fast across the ground, keeping pace with us. We reached the car and piled in, Luke fumbling with the keys. The sound stopped the moment the engine turned over. As we sped out of the campground, none of us spoke. We didn't camp together again after that. Weeks later, Luke went back during the day to retrieve his tent. The campsite was empty. No tent, no cooler, no footprints. Just a fire pit neatly rebuilt and 2 empty beer cans placed carefully in a row, exactly where we'd been sitting. He left without taking anything. To this day, none of us can hear our own recorded voices without feeling uneasy, because whatever was out there didn't just hear us, it learned us. I never believed in the idea that the woods could be wrong. Dangerous, sure. Unpredictable, absolutely. But evil? That felt like something people invented to explain fear. After what happened on that camping trip, I don't think that way anymore. This was years ago, back when I was still in college. 4 of us decided to take a late summer camping trip to celebrate the end of finals. Nothing extreme, just a remote forest campground about 2 hours from campus. The kind of place where tents were spaced far apart and cell service disappeared the moment you turned onto the dirt road. We arrived in the afternoon. The campground looked normal enough. Tall pine trees, wide clearings, old fire pits made of stacked stones. There were maybe 3 other groups scattered around, all far enough away that you could barely hear them. We chose a site near the edge of the woods, set up 2 tents, and spent the evening hiking, swimming, and drinking cheap beer. By the time night fell, the campground had gone quiet, except for the occasional laugh drifting from somewhere far away. That's when the first strange thing happened. As we sat around the fire, my friend Jess tilted her head and asked, "Did someone just say my name?" We all paused. "I didn't hear anything," Mark said. "I swear I heard it, like right behind the tent." We laughed it off. The fire popped, the wind shifted. No big deal. But then it happened again. This time, I heard it too. My name. Soft, close, almost whispered. I stood up and shined my flashlight toward the tents. Nothing there, just shadows and fabric rippling gently in the breeze. "Someone's messing with us," Ryan said. "Probably campers from the other site." But none of the other campsites were close enough for that kind of clarity. We tried to ignore it and kept talking, but the mood had shifted. Every sound felt louder, every shadow deeper. Around midnight, we decided to turn in. Mark and Ryan shared one tent. Jess and I took the other. I fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the day. I woke up to someone shaking the tent. Not violently, just enough to wake me. "Hey," a voice whispered. "Can you open this?" It was Jess's voice. I reached for the zipper automatically, then froze. Jess was lying right next to me. She was asleep. I whispered her name. She stirred, confused. "What?" she mumbled. "Did you just ask me to open the tent?" I asked. Her face went pale in the dim light. "No," she said, "but I heard that too." We lay there listening. From just outside the tent, the voice spoke again. "Please, it's cold." Same voice, same tone, same everything. I didn't respond, neither did Jess. After a long moment, the footsteps retreated. We didn't sleep again. At dawn, we told Mark and Ryan what happened. They exchanged a look. "We heard it too," Mark said quietly. "Someone calling Ryan's name from right outside our tent." We packed up to leave early, but Mark realized he'd left his phone charging in the car overnight. The car was parked near the campground entrance, about a 5-minute walk away. Against our better judgment, the four of us walked together to get it. The campground looked wrong in daylight. The other campsites were empty. No tents, no cars, no people. Just fire pits and flattened grass, like everyone had left in a hurry. As we walked back, we noticed something strange along the path. Footprints, bare footprints. They appeared suddenly, crossing the trail in a wide arc that led toward our campsite, and then stopped right in front of our tents. Ryan swallowed hard. Those weren't there yesterday. We reached the site and found something that made my stomach twist. Our tent, Jess and mine, was unzipped from the inside. None of us had opened it. Inside, our sleeping bags had been rearranged, folded neatly, side by side, and written in the dirt beneath them were 4 names, all of ours. We left immediately, or at least we tried to. As we hiked back toward the car, the forest grew unnaturally quiet. The air felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing in on us. Then, from behind us, we heard the sound of fabric moving. A zipper, slowly opening, behind us. We turned around. Our tent was standing in the middle of the trail. That's impossible, I know, but it was there, upright, perfectly pitched. The flap began to move. From inside the tent, a voice spoke. Not one voice, all of ours, overlapping, whispering, "Come back." That's when we ran. We didn't stop until we reached the car. We didn't look back. As we drove away, I glanced into the rearview mirror. The forest ended abruptly, like a wall, and at the edge of it, I swear I saw 2 tents standing side by side. Only one of them was ours. None of us talk about that trip anymore. Jess refuses to sleep in tents. Mark sold all his camping gear. Ryan deleted every photo from that weekend except one, a single image taken accidentally in his pocket just before we ran. It shows the inside of a tent and 4 sleeping bags, one of them open, facing the camera.